There was a time when I was just like any other person, ordinary, with hopes, dreams, and the naive belief that the world could be kind. But, as you may have guessed, life rarely plays by those rules. I didn't ask for this power. I didn't seek it. But once the world forced me to become something else, I embraced it. It all started with a betrayal that cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. You see, I wasn't born into a life of power or wealth. I didn't inherit a fortune or a legacy. No, I was just a regular person, trying to survive in a world that barely noticed me. I worked hard, I kept my head down, and I was loyal to those I loved. But loyalty, as I would soon learn, is a double-edged sword. It was my closest friends who first stabbed me in the back. Friends I had trusted with my very soul. We'd been through everything together. Through the hardships, the struggles, the victories. I had given them my trust, my loyalty, and they returned it with nothing but lies and deceit. One of them, the one I had trusted most, betrayed me in the worst way possible. He took what was mine, my family, my reputation, my future, and destroyed it. At first, I didn't understand. How could someone I had helped, someone I had cared for, do something so vile? But the answer was simple. In this world, there are no true friends. People only take as much as they can and discard you once you're no longer useful. The betrayal stung at first. I felt weak, humiliated, and devastated. But it didn't take long for the rage to build. That rage, which I had kept buried for years, finally found its release. I had been wronged, and now I had nothing left to lose. It was time to make them pay. But revenge wasn't enough. No, they had taken more than just my belongings or my status. They had stolen my humanity. They had turned me into something darker, something more dangerous. And in the end, I realized something crucial. This world didn't deserve my humanity. It only understood power and fear. They made me a monster, and now they would fear my name. In the days that followed the betrayal, I did what most people would do when faced with a wound so deep. It consumed me. I isolated myself from everyone, even those who still tried to reach out. I was no longer the person I once was. I wasn't interested in healing or pretending everything was fine. The world had shown me its ugly side, and I was determined to return the favor. My first step was simple but effective. I took back control. I started by taking a long, hard look at the situation. I analyzed every detail, the faces of the people who had wronged me, their weaknesses, their desires, and their fears. They thought they had gotten away with it, but I was no fool. I knew their vulnerabilities better than they knew themselves, and I would use every single one of them to my advantage. But just knowing their weaknesses wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed power. And for that, I turned to the darker side of the world, the side most people would avoid, the one they'd call unethical or immoral. But I had nothing left to lose, and nothing was off limits to someone like me. I began gathering information, contacts, and resources. There were people out there who thrived on manipulation and deceit, just like my betrayers had done to me. And I was going to learn from the best. I spent weeks in the shadows, watching and learning from those who had mastered the art of control. I studied the powerful figures in society, the ones who held sway over others, not through brute force, but through influence, through fear, and through a deep understanding of human nature. They used fear as a weapon, and I would do the same. With each passing day, the rage inside me grew stronger. more focused. I didn't just want revenge anymore. No, I wanted to show them just how much they had underestimated me. I would make them feel every ounce of pain I had endured and more. And not only would I make them regret what they'd done, I would make them fear me. The first move I made was small, a rumor, a whispered word in the right ear. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it began to unravel my betrayer's perfect little world. At first they didn't notice. They were too busy basking in their victory, but I knew it wouldn't take long for the seeds of doubt to grow. And grow they did. Soon, others began to question him, his motives, his loyalty. The walls he had so carefully constructed around himself started to crumble. But that was just the beginning. The real work was still to come. I had learned from the best how to manipulate, how to control, how to break a person down without them even realizing it. I used everything I knew about my betrayers against them, their fears, their insecurities, their darkest secrets. I wasn't just taking back what was mine. I was rewriting the entire narrative, shifting the power back into my hands. No one would ever dare to cross me again. But something strange happened during this transformation. As I grew stronger, as I honed my skills and unleashed my power, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just anger or hatred. It was something darker, something more exhilarating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just reacting to the world around me. I wasn't being swept along by the tides of fate or the whims of others. I was the one steering the ship now. I was the one making the rules. And I liked it. I liked the power, the sense of invincibility that came with it. I felt like I could bend the world to my will. And the best part? No one saw it coming. They thought I was broken. They thought I was weak. But now, I was more powerful than I'd ever been before. And as I made my next move, destroying their reputation, taking away everything they held dear, I realized that I wasn't just getting even anymore. I was becoming something more. I was becoming the villain. I was becoming the monster they had created. The realization hit me like a thunderbolt. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I wasn't just a person wronged by the world. No, I had evolved into something far darker, far more dangerous. I had become the very thing they feared. I had become the force that would strike without mercy, without hesitation. They had made me a monster, but now they would fear my name. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about showing the world what happens when you push someone too far, when you betray them without understanding the cost. It was about making them understand that there are consequences for actions. My transformation was complete. No longer the naive, trusting fool I had once been. I had become something else entirely. Now, it was time to make sure they knew. Time to make sure they felt every ounce of my wrath. And with each step I took, I could feel the power surging through me, reminding me that I was in control now. I was the one to be feared. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. Everything I had done, every move I had made had led me to this point. The point where I would show them just how deep their mistake ran. They thought I was just a passing phase, a moment of weakness they could walk away from without consequence. But they had miscalculated. I knew exactly what they were thinking, and I used that to my advantage. They believed I would stay quiet. They believed they could leave me in the dust, forgotten and powerless. But now, I was a shadow, a whisper in their minds, always present, but never seen. And as the days passed, the pressure began to mount. I could feel their anxiety, their confusion. They didn't know who to trust anymore. Every relationship they'd carefully built was crumbling under the weight of my subtle manipulation. Every move I made was designed to keep them guessing, to make them doubt everything they had ever believed in. But what really got to them, the thing that truly began to unravel them, was when I turned their own allies against them. It wasn't about brute force. It wasn't about some grand, dramatic display of power. It was all about precision. A word here, a suggestion there, a carefully placed action that seemed innocent at first. The art of manipulation wasn't about being flashy. It was about being patient. It was about knowing when to strike and when to let the seeds of doubt grow slowly until they had completely overtaken the mind of your enemy. I watched from the sidelines as my work bore fruit. The people who had once stood beside my betrayer began to pull away. They started questioning him. They started wondering if they could trust him. And while they were distracted, I made my move. It wasn't big or obvious, but it was enough to tip the scales. I ensured that when the time came for him to make a crucial decision, he would choose the wrong path. I made sure he would lose everything he had worked so hard to build. But the real masterpiece was yet to come. I had always known that to truly make them fear me, I needed to strike when they least expected it. The final blow had to come when they were at their most vulnerable, when they thought they had weathered the worst of it. And so, I waited. I waited for the moment when they would think they had escaped, when they believed they were finally free of the monster they had created. But I wasn't finished with them yet. It came like a storm, sudden, relentless, and unyielding. I didn't need to be in the room with them. I didn't need to say a word. I had learned from the best, and now I could control things from the shadows. I had arranged for their downfall in a way that no one could trace back to me. No one could accuse me of anything. It would all look like the consequences of their own actions. Fate, karma, whatever they wanted to call it. But deep down, they would know. They would know that it was me. And that's when it hit them. The realization that they had underestimated me. The cold, harsh truth that they had made a monster, and now the monster was in control. The world was watching as my betrayer fell from grace, as their empire crumbled beneath them, and as their reputation was torn apart. But no one would ever know the truth. No one would ever know the real power behind the destruction. They thought they had turned me into something to pity, something weak. But what they didn't realize was that their cruelty had forged me into a weapon. And now, I was the one pulling the strings. And as they finally grasped what had been happening all along, the subtle betrayals, the manipulations, the whispers in the dark, the fear in their eyes was unmistakable. I had become the very thing they had feared from the beginning, the monster they thought they could silence, but who now haunted their every move. But what really sent a chill down their spines wasn't the chaos I had caused. It was the fact that I had done it all without lifting a finger, without ever being seen. I had become the ghost they couldn't escape, the name they would never be able to forget. I was the whisper on the wind, the shadow in the corner of the room, and no matter where they went, they would always feel my presence. Now, when they spoke my name, it was with a shiver of dread. The monster they had created was no longer someone to pity. I was the force they had unleashed, the reckoning they had brought upon themselves, and they would live the rest of their lives knowing that every mistake, every wrong they had done had led to this, my revenge, my rise to power. They had made me a monster, but in doing so, they had also created the thing that would haunt them for eternity. They had forged my name into something that would live on in their nightmares, a reminder that no one ever truly gets away with their sins. Now, they would fear me, not because of my strength, not because of my cruelty, but because of the one truth that they could never deny. I had become something more than they ever thought possible. I had become the monster they couldn't destroy.